In the midst of burgeoning anticipation for a future dominated by electric vehicles, EVs, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, stirred considerable excitement with its proposal for new tailpipe rules a year ago. The proposition, ambitiously targeting a transition where 2/3 of all new vehicles would be all-electric by 2032, appeared poised to propel the automotive industry into an era of unprecedented change. However, as the dust settled and scrutiny deepened, cracks in the plan's foundation began to surface. It became increasingly evident that the lofty targets set forth by the EPA were not merely ambitious but potentially unattainable, fraught with challenges ranging from stringent emissions requirements to pragmatic economic realities. Now, with the Biden administration recalibrating its approach in response to evolving market dynamics and pragmatic considerations, the landscape of EV adoption stands number 6. New EPA rules. A year ago, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, introduced new tailpipe rules aimed at accelerating the transition to electric vehicles, EVs, with the ambitious target of having 2/3 of new vehicles be all-electric by 2032. However, upon closer examination, it became evident that these targets were overly optimistic and not grounded in realistic expectations. One major concern was the stringent emissions requirements, which many manufacturers would struggle to meet, leading to potential fines and increased financial burdens associated with EV production. As sales figures for the year rolled in, it became apparent that the initial targets were unattainable, prompting the Biden administration to revise the goal significantly. Instead of aiming for 67% EV adoption, the new target is set at 35% of all new vehicles being all-electric by 2032. This adjustment reflects the recognition that the transition to EVs will take longer than initially anticipated, aligning with the assessments of many industry experts. Despite some conflicting statements from officials, such as Michael Regan from the Environmental Agency, EA, who emphasized the continued goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, while also acknowledging the absence of a mandate for electric vehicle adoption, the revised rules aim to cut emissions by 49% by 2032 compared to 2026 levels, down from the original target of 56%. Number 5. EV growth slows down significantly. One of the key reasons why this initial plan failed is the fact that the market has slowed down significantly. Even though the market still grows, it seems like it cooled down a lot. The problem is that the initial EPA proposal was based on the growth between 2020 and 2022 during the pandemic. Year-over-year EV sales were 90% or more, and after a couple of years of sales doubling up, things started to change. The creators of this plan completely neglected the fact that this was the phase of early adopters. The reason why the market was growing so fast was because of tech geeks and wealthy households who wanted to get a new piece of technology at any cost. Once they got their EVs, there wasn't much room left for further growth because it was time for the middle-class attack. And you know how things go when you're on a set budget. You have to make a rational choice. And at this very point, EVs are anything but that. They're still way more expensive than their gas counterparts and don't give much in return. The outcome was kind of expected for everyone but the officials. The EPA was predicting a 70% growth in 2023, but last year ended with a 50% increase. An even bigger shock came when they got results from January 2024, which showed that the year-over-year growth was just 15%. Number 4. Immaturity of EV technology. If we're looking for reasons why EV growth is slowing down significantly, the most obvious one would be the fact that the current generation of EVs can't meet the demands of customers. As we already mentioned, the phase of early adopters is over, and the middle class has much higher criteria in terms of what they want for their money. According to the recent survey taken by Boston Consulting Group, which included 3,000 U.S. consumers, nearly 40% said that they plan to purchase an EV as their next vehicle. However, they also stated that they have pretty high requirements to make that transition. They wanted 20-minute charging time, a 350-mile driving range at a price of $50,000. That's where the problem with EV adoption begins. Because if you look at the current offer on the market, there's only one electric vehicle that meets such criteria: the Hyundai Ioniq 6 rear-wheel drive, which only confirms the thesis that the current EV technology is still immature to be embraced by the masses. In other words, EVs are still not good enough, and the problem is in the approach EV makers took. Number 3. Automakers losing money. According to the same study by Boston Consulting Group, automakers lose an average of $6,000 for every $50,000 electric vehicle they sell. To be honest, this study doesn't come as a big revelation. It's something we already knew long ago, that car makers still haven't figured out how to make electric cars profitable. Sure, they invested billions in the development of new technologies, but there's also the matter of battery cost and the cost of raw materials, to be precise. Then, there's the inability to optimize the production process, which all leads to a massive loss. Things went to the point that legacy car makers felt completely drained. They're forced to cancel or postpone their planned EV investments just to save capital. Just take Ford as an example. It's estimated that over the last year, the company has lost around $336,000 on every F-150 Lightning that they sold. The total EV losses are estimated around $5 billion. So the decision to delay $12 billion worth of EV investments planned for this year doesn't come as a surprise. As for the F-150 Lightning and its destiny, the planned production for 2024 has been cut by half, which affected around 1,400 workers. Other automakers are facing similar challenges. GM, for example, is also losing billions not just due to the production, but also because of significant quality issues it's facing at the moment. Number 2. Presidential race. Upcoming presidential races seem closer than ever, and if you ask experts, most of them will tell you that the keys of the White House are in industrial states, such as Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and of course Michigan. And with the UAW publicly supporting Biden, it was obvious that the current administration would have to be very flexible with these rules and listen to the union, because the transition to EVs could potentially cost thousands of workers' jobs. Now, with a new set of rules, the Detroit 3 has a moment of relief, especially if we consider the new regulations for heavy-duty pickups, which are some of the biggest moneymakers for all three. By 2032, heavy-duty pickups will be required to cut their emissions by less than half, and in practice, this means that they'll be allowed to pollute 3 times more than light-duty pickups and 4 times more than passenger cars, which will certainly help the 3 companies to avoid billions of dollars in fines, which seemed inevitable with the initial set of proposed rules. All this translates to steady profit and more money for further developments, which consequently led to the rise of shares by up to 3.5% last week. Number 1. Hybrids are the next big thing. It turns out that once the initial excitement around fully electric vehicles has waned, hybrids are emerging as the next big thing in the automotive industry. Hybrids offer a compromise between traditional gasoline-powered cars and fully electric ones, providing some of the benefits of electric vehicles without the range limitations or high costs. With advancements in hybrid technology, such as plug-in hybrids that can be charged like electric vehicles, consumers are finding them increasingly attractive. Hybrids address many of the concerns that have hindered the widespread adoption of electric vehicles. They offer improved fuel efficiency and reduced emissions compared to traditional gasoline cars, making them a more environmentally friendly option without the need for extensive charging infrastructure. Additionally, hybrids typically have a lower upfront cost compared to fully electric vehicles. Automakers are increasingly investing in hybrid technology as a result of these shifting preferences. Models like the Toyota Prius and Honda Insight have paved the way for hybrid vehicles, and newer offerings from manufacturers like Ford and Hyundai are further expanding the market. In conclusion, while the initial push for fully electric vehicles may have stalled, hybrids are poised to fill the gap and drive the automotive industry toward a more sustainable future. With their combination of efficiency, affordability, and practicality, hybrids offer a compelling alternative to both traditional gasoline cars and fully electric vehicles, making them an increasingly popular choice among consumers and automakers alike.